Hello, everyone. Santier here, shining this blue light from my microphone on me. And welcome to the, what month is this? July 2023 Life and Channel update video. So there's been a lot going on this month. Some notable things. I started playing Guild Wars 2 again. I have some friends who are working there, and it's a game that I've always wanted to like. So I thought, you know what? This was back in the start of the month, first start of the month, when the combo Dragon Saga expansion pack was on sale. It's like, you know what? Let's get this and actually see how things feel with the expansions. So I've been playing my Revenant mostly and Heart of Fire, and I'm like, oh, this enemy design is a lot more engaging. I've always kind of preferred the Revenant profession, but I wanted to give the game an updated chance, so I've been playing that and having fun with that. And enemy design is just so important to that game, and I think that they have dramatically improved enemy design from the base game. I think that they got the enemy difficulty spot in a better place. I think Heart of Thorns was probably a bit hard when it first came out and I first played it, relative to where I was, and so I think I've been enjoying Path of Fire, and I'm looking forward to End of Dragons and the next expansion now. So I've been playing that again, and very excited to be actually enjoying it. I've also been going to some drafts. You might see some cards that I need to put away from the draft on yesterday. So there's a local game store that does drafts. I'm recording this on a Friday, and they do their drafts on Thursday. So I wanted to draft the Lord of the Rings set because they're doing drafts of that, and this set made me happy. Although last time they didn't quite have enough Lord of the Rings, so we did. I need to talk about this because it's very exciting. They did Dominaria Remastered Draft, and that set just speaks to me and my nostalgia. It's like, oh, this pack, every single pack is just making me smile. I'm like, oh, I'm so happy to see these cards in here. That set is just like, it speaks to my my nostalgia for the game. And I had a crazy deck that involved Triskelion, Oversold Cemetery, Forgotten Ancient, and some Call of the Herds, and a bunch of other. Penumbra Bobcat turns out to be pretty good and limited. A bunch of other stuff. So had a lot of fun, absolutely wrecking face with that deck. But we're not here to talk about Magic, other than I've been really enjoying building decks with it again, and it is such a happy place. I have been thinking, speaking of card games, at one point in time, I did a thought exercise to an extent. It was a little bit more than a thought exercise, but if you actually were trying to make a sci-fi card game, people have talked about, what is it, Space the Convergence or whatever, like reskinning Magic as a sci-fi game. It's like, but does that really make sense? So I did some fundamentals with like what I think it would look like. And I've been mulling in my brain of like, maybe I should work on this again. So maybe I'll work on that again. I had gotten up to the point where I was like, I'd made a program to let me like make out cards, kind of like Magic Set Editor was my inspiration for that. So like, I just hadn't gotten to the point of developing enough of it mechanically in terms of like card effects and stuff to playtest anything. But you know, I'm thinking about it. Speaking about game design, Astria is another really big one to talk about. So I have to figure out the order. One of the things that I have realized, by the way, is that I have this thing that develops where I'll have ideas that are in my head in kind of a web, kind of a graph for you math nerds like me, where there's a bunch of like interconnected nodes, and that are like, because of that interconnection, I don't really know where to start because they all feel like, well, this relies on that and that relies on this, and so it's a little hard for me to untangle. I've been working on an article that I'm going to be publishing before I publish this video, and the article's not completely done yet. It's going through proofreading and editing at the time that I'm recording this. Time gets all wonky when it comes to any of this sort of stuff, but I want to have that out. There will be a link in the description, which is why I want to finish the article before I publish this video. But that will go into a lot of detail, but just kind of recap some here. I've basically realized that I've run myself into just an absolutely fractured, complicated mess with Astria. And I need to back up and have the perspective of a writer here. It's really easy to get into the headspace of, oh, this is your precious game project that you're trying to make happen or whatever. And it's like, this is, what I've been doing in RPG Maker MV. I need to step back and look at it as what I am doing is I'm writing drafts. I am doing those, when you're making art, you do pencil sketches to kind of get the actual feel for the technique. I have spent a lot of time, I've realized, thinking about game design, the theory of game design, all these sorts of things, which is all well and good, but it's not practical experience. And what I've been doing the past several years in RPG Maker MV is I've been getting that practical experience, really doing the design work. And not just the design work, but figuring out myself as a designer. There's a lot of really important things here, and I will go into this in the article probably in more detail than what I'll do here, but to kind of give a high-level overview, some really important things about myself. First of all, I'm a pantser. For those who aren't familiar with that term, it's a writing term, pantsers and plotters. Pantsers are people who fly by the seat of their pants, they figure stuff out as they go. That is creatively my headspace, my mode. I need to start putting strokes on the page and then figuring out how they all connect together and what they turn out into. Plotter is the other option, which is where you figure out everything beforehand before you start doing stuff. Pantsers and plotters, it's just two different approaches. There are strengths and weaknesses to both. One of the things that you need as a pantser is you need the ability to erase. You need functional, like the ability to move lines. You need the ability to erase lines. One of the problems that I've been running into is RPG Maker MV is very bad at letting you move certain lines. Anything you put in the database, like, you can't reorganize it cleanly at all. And that's something that I've been running into as a bit of a problem, is it's a bit unfriendly towards my pantser proclivities. Some other important things is my gaming influences definitely affect how I see things, so it means that I kind of run against the grain of what RPG Maker MV is designed to do, because I didn't grow up playing Final Fantasy games. Like, I didn't grow up in the SNES era of RPGs. And that's really what RPG Maker MV is designed to create. And so I'm trying to do stuff where I'm looking at, Guild Wars 1 is an absolutely enormous influence for me. There's some of the, ideas, I've tried a job system with a version of Psychopomps, and that was coming from vague recollections of Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced that I thought was really cool, having this job system. But they have a different way for how you navigate through that. And so, there's all these different, practical things and stuff that I'm getting experience with, but, how I'm running against the tool. One of the really important things as well is I've always known that world building is really important to me. It just I like a cohesive world. That's something that I've really appreciated about From Software's work with the Souls games. Soulsborne, Ring, I don't know what. Throw in Sekiro as well. I don't know what the portmanteaued 50-word long nonsense gobbledygook is in any of these days. But I don't know. I've just played the Dark Souls trilogy and Elden Ring of those anyway. But the stuff that they do with their thoughtful world building. Lord of the Rings also. I really like the careful world building of Tolkien. The very thoughtful stuff. The way that Silmarillion goes from the fundamentals of the very foundation of the universe, the way that he was thinking about how culture and language interact. I really enjoy what Lois McMaster Bejeweled did with the Verkosgen saga. For those who don't know, that is a sci-fi series, quite a lengthy one, written over several decades. But it's a fantastic series looking at the intersection of humanity and technology, with the social ramifications of an artificial womb being particularly noteworthy. So definitely something that I think a woman is more inclined to think about than a man. But she does an excellent job developing that setting as well, and that interplay. So I have a tendency to run into problems in RPG Maker MV because of this. So one of those things is I really like the Souls style of storytelling, where it's not really telling your story, it's telling the world story, and you're kind of archaeologically uncovering it. I really like that, and I really enjoy that. But RPG Maker MV is awkwardly set up to do that. Like, there's a lot of key components of that. So, like, you can have dialogue with NPCs, obviously, but descriptions on stuff is just an area where it's very limited. You have descriptions, but in my opinion, it's more important to prioritize putting in like gameplay information rather than lore. But I want space for the lore information, so that's an area where like I've run into problems. There's some other like the art assets that I have access to is just a static set. Like, here's the thing: if I wanted, like, if I was going to be doing all custom art or whatever, I wouldn't be using RPG Maker MV. I would be using Unity or something, probably Unity. But I would be using an engine where I would be establishing more of the mechanics myself and other things, which is like what future plans are, but nebulous as those are. So I have this this tendency to like take those assets that are already provided there. This is where I run into problems too. I try to use the whole buffalo of their icon set, and then I'm like, okay, this is plate mail armor. How does plate mail armor work in this game? And the problem that I'm working from here is I'm working from what I'd call Narvazod first. You might call this top-down design as well, if you read like Mark Rosewater's articles where it's like flavor first. Narvazod is just a term that we coined at Vernacular Games. I coined it with Redcoat there, and it's short. It's a combination of narrative, visual, and audio. So the idea is there's two halves of a game that work together: the narrative, visual, audio, the Narvazod, and the mechanics. We coined our own term because we couldn't find another one that we liked. But they work together to support the whole of what you're trying to do, to come together with your greater themes and intention and whatnot. And so, like, I'm wanting to, like, I basically am having a hard time translating Narvazodal ideas into mechanics within the limited scope of what RPG Maker MV provides me. And I just need to start from a mechanics first approach, because Narvazod tends to be a lot more flexible in this sort of regard. And like, either way can work, but it's what within the context of your system, which way can it, like, are you able to come up with mechanics to represent things? And to some extent, RPG Maker MV kind of struggles with that, especially if you're doing things that are overly elaborate, which is often what I've done. So what you end up doing, at least in my case, is narrow the design space down. And I just was getting bogged down in weeds. That's what happened. One of the things I realized is that when my motivation just bottoms out, there's something wrong. There's something fundamentally wrong that's causing that to happen. And I need to examine why that is and not just try to push through it. Because there's probably some larger problem that actually needs to be addressed with the design, that I think I just need to be very conscious of. So, to kind of summarize where I'm at, I've learned a lot about myself as a designer. I've learned a lot about how I should be interfacing with RPG Maker MV. Also, like, when I talk with my sister, and one of the things that we agree on is that stories that are about characters, that are character-driven, tend to be the best ones. For me, it's like world, character, and then plot in terms of importance. It's like we'll talk about Star Trek, for example, or just like the modern shape of TV, where when TV was I forget what they call it, broadcast or whatever. I don't know, the network, when they had like 22 episodes in a season, and they could spend time focusing on the characters, and a lot of these newer shows on the streaming services are like mini series where it's like, okay, here's a plot, and we're telling you a plot, and there's not time to develop character because everything's about the plot. And it's not that plot isn't important, but fleshing out characters and letting those relationships grow and develop and giving time for them to kind of simmer tends to make a more compelling and engaging experience. And that's something that I've really struggled with trying to do in RPG Maker MV, because some of my other sensibilities are like, I like randomizers, for example, and I like the idea of gameplays where you're handed a differing set of initial parameters, and something that roguelikes do as well, where like you have to figure out what you're doing from an unknown set, or where you can change up the order of what you're doing. But that's really not feasible for telling a character-driven story in RPG Maker MV, because the tools to be able to dynamically adjust what's going on dialogue-wise are too rudimentary. They're not like they exist, but they're too rudimentary to be able to like reasonably weave complicated chains of potential dialogue. So, all that said, my plan at this point is to shelve, with an asterisk here, Astria and Psychopomps, take the parts from those that are going to work well for me, and just do something new that's smaller, that's more character focused. Again, the article goes into more detail on all of this stuff, and was a really helpful thing for me to write. Writing as a way of processing stuff is really something I've been finding quite useful, that I want to be more proactive about doing. So you can read more of those details there. Other things. So we talked about that. I have one of the other things that I recognize is really important as I was working on that article is that I just need to spend more time playing games for like research purposes. This is a really weird spot where it's been set up in my brain that playing games and work are two separate things, but in some regards, playing games is a really important part of what I'm trying to do with game design, because it can be a source of inspiration. Like consuming media in general can function as a source of inspiration, and games in particular, but also seeing what solutions people have to problems. It's really important to experience a breadth of games, and I'm kind of bad at that. I tend to really single in on something, like playing a bunch of Elden Ring or whatever. But I just need to actually consider time spent playing games as valuable for me from a job standpoint. There's been a lot of like stuff that I've been breaking down with how my own brain works. I wrote a article, and I don't remember if I talked about it exactly when that came out, so I don't remember if it was last month or this month. I'm not going to bring it up right now to check, but I might as well include a link to it too. But I wrote an article where I was processing a bunch of stuff as well. That was really helpful for helping me to kind of step outside some of that. But I've been in a I do want to write an article about this, but to briefly talk, I've been thinking a lot about Romans 12:2 to just jump into, because like my religious beliefs interweave throughout my whole being. Which talks about not being conformed to the pattern of this world, but being transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I feel like I've been doing a lot of introspective work to identify how I've been conforming to like the patterns of like how society is structured and works, and the way things are thought about and conceptualized. And that's been getting worked on, and I think that that's like part of what's going on here. But part of what that means is I need to adjust my thinking. Like playing games is important for me, not just from an enjoyment or fun standpoint, although that's a nice thing, but also from I need the broader base of experience. I need to see what ideas are people doing, both like Narvazad ideas, storytelling ideas, but also mechanical ideas. How are those things marrying together? I need to play them with a degree of the analytic mind turned on. So that way I can absorb potential solutions to problems. stuff that, you know, there's this phenomenon I've noticed of, oh, that idea seems so obvious in retrospect, but until it hit you, until you became aware of it in whatever way or mechanism by which you became aware of it, you just didn't think about it. It just never entered your head. And so playing games with enough of an analytical focus to be able to absorb that, something that I needed to spend more time doing. That would be a great thing to stream, just coming back around to something I was about to say. But I don't want to stream until I figure out microphone mounting situation, because my microphone comes off of the around the right side of things, because the left side of my desk here is pathway. And my microphone arm can mount to the corner of this desk over here, but it's a very awkward corner to mount it to, and then the microphone is stretching across, and it's not great. So I'd rather the microphone be coming from over here like it traditionally has been, but I don't have a good spot to mount it over there, the support arm. So there's a lot of like, what am I doing with this microphone that needs to be kind of figured out before I'm interested in doing something like streaming again. And I'd rather stream rather than like, I mean, it doesn't matter between streaming or recording videos. The microphone setup problem is the same problem. But before I do that sort of thing again, and I'd rather stream because I don't want to have to worry about like editing videos and all that sort of stuff. But before I do any of that sort of stuff again, I want to figure out a mounting solution. So it's possible that I could just do like summary videos or like thinking about game design videos, which use this format to talk about stuff, rather than like in lieu of nothing. So if that's something that might be of interest to you, let me know. And I can potentially see about doing that. I do have several ideas of things I want to do, but anyway, at this point, I think that's most of what I want to cover. There's been a lot going on this month. I think it's been a pretty good month overall. I'm thankful for our air conditioner. I'm really thankful that the refrigeration cycle exists, and that we can use that to cool our homes or heat them, move heat around. But I think otherwise, that's about it. So thank you all very much for watching. And for those occasional new subscribers, I don't know what you're hoping for, but let me know in the comments, and thank you for dropping by. I do appreciate it. I haven't been doing a whole lot here lately, but that's not for lack of wanting to do something at some point. So until that some point, or until the next one of these videos, thank you all very much. Take care, and goodbye.